Good evening. I'd like to call to order the January 9th meeting of the Falmouth Planning Board. The first thing on our agenda is the minutes from December 19th.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend approval of the minutes of December 19th as corrected.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Don't see any A&R plans? Oh, public comment, I always go over that, sorry. If anyone would like to speak on anything that's not on our agenda tonight, you're welcome to come up and address us for a couple of minutes. Is anyone here to speak on an issue that's not on the agenda? Very good. So we don't have any A&Rs. We'll right into the planning board decision. So, Bob, would you start off? We're going to have a discussion and a decision here, but we have a draft decision which you'll read that'll get us started on our discussion.
Yeah. Okay, draft definitive plan motion January 5th, 2018. Motion that the planning board vote to approve the application of Robert Paulson under Article
4.
I hate these Roman numerals. I'm doing okay. The V minus the I's. I have to do that in my head in order to do it. Okay, on Article 4, definitive plans, Chapter 305, subdivision regulations of the town of Falmouth for a plan entitled Subdivision Plan of Land prepared for Robert Paulson, Sipwisset, Falmouth, Mass., prepared by Holmes and McGrath, Inc., dated October 23rd, 2017, scale 1 inch equals 40 feet, together with the roadway plan and profiles entitled Plan and Profile prepared for Robert Paulson, Sipwisset, Falmouth, Mass., dated August 28th, 2017, revised October 23rd, 2017, November 27th, 2017, and December 6th, 2017, with the following findings and conditions. Findings. The applicant seeks to subdivide 2.56 acres of residential A RA zone land into 2 lots located at 0 Terhune Drive, assessor map number 3501-00300. For access to the 2 lots, the applicant is proposing to construct a 14-foot wide paved roadway via an 80-foot right-of-way over Herbert and Patricia Messenger's parcel. Assessors map number 3607-015-033, utilizing the Messenger's existing frontage at 10 Hillcrest Drive. The planning board does not attempt to determine who has rights to use or improve this 80-foot private right-of-way. This will be determined between the owners of the dominant estate, Messenger, and the servient estate, Pulse. The approval of this plan does not authorize the applicant to interfere with the rights of others to use the land shown on the plan. The applicant has requested that the board waive the requirement for road width as allowed in Section 305-47 of the Subdivision Control Bylaw. Article 6, Section 305-24B, width, alignment, and grades require that the roadway be 22 feet wide and paved. The applicant is asking for a reduction to 14 foot wide. This is the only waiver the applicant is seeking. The applicant has responded to a referral from the Falmouth Engineering Division dated November 17, 2017, and a letter dated November 27, 2017, providing additional drainage calculations. Engineering responded December 19, 2017, stating additional drainage calculations will mitigate stormwater runoff. The applicant also requested a continuance to a scheduled planning board hearing on December 12, 2017, until the planning board meeting of December 19, 2017. The board voted to approve this continuance. The applicant's attention is directed to the Water Department's referral dated November 7, 2017. The department indicates a water connection to the existing main on Hillcrest Drive requires the applicant file a separate application to the Water Department for service. The referral also indicates the applicant must provide documentation of the legal right to install and maintain the water service in the unnamed road. Waivers. One waiver from the Planning Board's rules and regulations in the form of a letter dated October 23, 2017 from Holmes and McGrath, Inc. has been submitted and is incorporated by reference here. Except as modified by this decision, the board finds the waiver acceptable, consistent with the typical roadway design found in the neighborhood while still providing suitable access to the lots in the subdivision. Conditions. The applicant or owners of the newly created lots are responsible for snow removal, trash, and general roadway upkeep and maintenance. A note shall be put on the plan prior to endorsement. Prior to plan endorsement, the road name shall be placed on the plan in form for recording at the Barnstable County Registry of Deeds. 3, a suitable bond or covenant shall be submitted within 6 months of this decision, or the board may take action to rescind this plan. 4, prior to the final release of covenant or bond, the applicant shall provide an electronic version of the subdivision plan in a portable document file, PDF format. Add to waiver section, in addition, the planning board grants these waivers necessary to construct the roadway as depicted on the plan and profile plan referenced above.
Start off, Charlotte, do you have any?
Do we need a second?
Oh, second.
Second.
It's
No.
been seconded?
Yeah,
No?
we would second it.
No, I couldn't go with you when you went to visit the site, but I did go on my own and take a look to see if there was something about the site that would need to be added to our thinking, but I didn't see anything there that would make this a difficult decision.
John?
The only question I have is, in what was read, it says, this is the only waiver the applicant is seeking. In other words, the road being 14 feet wide instead of 22 feet. But in the engineering referral, talks about not having a sidewalk, street lights, roads longer than 500 feet, no fire hydrant, no trees being added on the sides of the roads. Are these not waivers that we need to grant, or?
I had the same question when I heard that.
Yeah.
So my understanding is that there's a letter that references the width of the roadway, and you'll notice that you also have that blanket waiver, that sentence that was added by Bob at the end there. You know, we grant those waivers necessary to construct the road as depicted on the plan.
On the plan.
So sidewalks, street trees, whatever waiver would be necessary in order to construct the road is covered by that sentence. You don't have to individually list them.
Okay. Do we need to put anything in here in the findings that the road needs to be constructed as proposed?
It's understood?
I think it's understood and it's bonded. We got to go check it afterwards and we hold their money until we approve it. So I think,
So can they get a building permit once they get it bonded, or once they get it,
they
I
can.
think either, once they submit a bond for the roadway, correct?
Yeah.
Or a vendor's agreement, cash.
Cash, that's good.
You love cash. But they can't do so when the covenants.
Kind of like we did, if you remember, John, I don't know, Sunrise Estates, that thing, subdivision was bonded. We had that for a long, long time and we finally finished
When
it.
they sign the covenant, you'll see it will reference certain documents. It will reference the application, it will reference the plans, it will reference your decision.
Okay.
And that gets recorded with the plan.
okay, thank you.
Paul?
We had a discussion on the cul-de-sac at the end of that driveway. I didn't see that on the plans. Has that waiver been issued as well?
Well, I guess if it's not shown on the plan, they're asking for a waiver for that. That's what you just
Well, it
said.
says that the only waiver is the width of the road.
Well, Brian just corrected us that it's the only waiver, but the plan has, like, we just covered that, sidewalks, other street trees.
It didn't cover the cul-de-sac.
It did, no. Well,
So,
Go ahead.
it covers everything in your rules and regulations from soup to nuts. So if you don't see a cul-de-sac there, you have waived that requirement with that second sentence. We grant those waivers necessary to construct the road as depicted. So if you want a cul-de-sac, then you would have to amend your motion to require one or a T turn.
yes, Sean?
Whatever it is the board would want for this.
There must be a typo here, because the additional sentence that was added to cover all of these things not enumerated, it says grant these waivers as if it were going to follow, so that it should say those waivers.
Okay,
We put those in there so Charlotte picks them up.
so Paul,
It's right there.
what do you think? Do you think it's necessary for a two-lot subdivision to have a turnaround down that end?
I think there's two issues. One is the requirement says it should be a cul-de-sac. The other issue, when you go out there, there's really no room to put a cul-de-sac there because of topography and the the nature of that area, so I think it'd be very difficult to build that. I think it'd be very onerous to try to put a cul-de-sac at that place there.
They're proposing to do neither right now.
Closing what?
They're proposing to do neither a cul-de-sac or a T. So how do you feel? You think it's necessary?
Difficult to build it.
What?
No, I don't think it's really necessary to do it. Too hazardous, no.
Okay, that's what I was getting at. That's what our decision is. We have to make, that's where the rubber meets the road for us. We have to look at everything and decide, is it necessary? So-
Well, it's in a requirement, and if it's necessary, it's very difficult to build.
Right, but we waive things. That's part of the definitive plan. That's what we're doing.
I'm just bringing it up as an issue.
Okay.
that's all.
But you don't, any other on that issue? Anything else, Paul?
No.
Pam?
Well, I agree with Paul, and I mean, I have to say, I understand that it's the right of the owner to develop how they can within the bylaws, but I think this is not a subdivision that I would like to see here. I think it's very awkward. I drove up there several times. I've walked up there. I think it's gonna change the entire complexion of the area where people have had those paths to walk and run on, and I think the road is gonna be narrow. I think it's, the way the road is gonna be cut in. And I understand it's the right of this individual or any individual to develop their land. I just wish there had been a better way to cut the road and to have access to it rather than going over somebody else's drive. And so I'm just saying I don't like the plan, but it's the way it is, so.
The way I understand it, the way I look at it, is that driveway's going across an 80-foot right-of-way.
Yeah.
It's a different view. You know, one, you're looking at the right-of-way's going over
Right.
the driveway's going over the right-of-way. I see it from the other side,
Right,
but that's,
right.
so, but
That's-
you're not recommending any changes, that'll be whether you vote for it or not.
Right.
Or do you have a condition?
Is this turnaround widened for turnout? That's just so two cars can pass, or a truck and a car can pass?
Would you like to, we can ask a question as the applicant, that's one of the reasons why they come. This is a discussion amongst our board, we're not going to open it to a public hearing,
Yeah.
but if we need,
Little turnouts, the board required these types of little turnouts on, I think it was Hidden Pond Way. It just gives it a little extra wiggle room when a car can move to the side. Toby Lane was another example. And pass and repass, just in case there might be some snow on the ground or whatever. A little management of the traffic in the area. But that's a common thing the board has required in the past.
And my other concern was if, obviously whoever buys the homes are gonna have to pay for plowing. There's so little room on that road that I'm concerned that that's gonna be the perfect place for someone to dump snow, in that little area where you may not be able to, and I know there's not gonna be that much traffic unless both homes have 3 or 4 teenagers, and then all bets are off,
but they're going to be responsible for the snow removal themselves.
I understand that. I just,
So if they don't do a good job, it's their own problem.
or it could be a hazard for other people. Anyway, those are my feelings
Okay.
about this.
Bob?
I kind of approach this from a findings point of view. One, the owner has undisputable rights to access the property via the 80-foot right-of-way. I think that's given. Lots in Knollwood are mostly 1 acre, and subdividing this property into the 2 acre-plus lots is not inconsistent with the rest of the subdivision. The driveway to number 10 Hillcrest Road lies partly in the 80-foot right-of-way. Therefore, the new road being proposed would not intersect with the driveway and then exit to Hillcrest Road. The driveway would therefore intersect with the new proposed road and not Hillcrest Road. The section of driveway that lies in the right-of-way becomes part of the new road. That's how I see it. Same thing. where the existing driveway is in the right-of-way. The footpath is not an ancient way and therefore does not need to be relocated. Footpath is a path of least resistance due to the topography. Subdivision control requires 22-foot wide pavement with sidewalk lighting and street trees and a turnaround, a cul-de-sac at the terminus. Waiving these requirements would lessen the impact to the environment, I feel. Falmouth Hospital has rights to this 80-foot right-of-way. Their rights do not go away. If this right-of-way remains in its current condition, there is nothing stopping Falmouth Hospital from creating a road through this right-of-way that meets all of the minimum road requirements in the bylaw. Building a 15-foot wide or 14-foot wide road may be a hedge against the future possibility of this scenario occurring. Every property owner has rights. No one can arbitrarily deny those rights. Owners of lots 1 and 2 would have the same maintenance responsibility as all the other Norwood property owners have for road maintenance, which brings me to a point as a taxpayer in this town and people that have private roads that don't maintain them. I worry about town equipment using those roads and getting damaged, and I find it pretty unconscionable that people let these roads go to ruin the way they do. I don't know what you can do about it, but it really angers me as a taxpayer that people let these roads get in these conditions, because it could be a matter of life and death someday, so.
You're saying the other roads that they do to
Yeah,
prevent traffic.
the other
They're trying to do
roads.
traffic control by letting
Yeah,
potholes grow.
you're right, and I really have a
That's-
problem with that.
I can understand that.
So,
But I don't think we can do anything about it.
oh, I know, but I just wanted to voice that it really ticks me off that that's a way that people try and get around people driving through the neighborhood.
Didn't happen yet.
Okay.
Well, they heard you.
Yeah.
They get that off. Pat?
Yeah, first of all, we live on a 14-foot road, and there are 20 or 22 houses on the road. There's not a problem with that width.
Ransom Way, right? Yeah.
Ransom Road, yeah.
I've been up and down it many
Yeah,
times.
there's not a problem with that width. So I don't have a problem with the width of the road, granting that waiver. The question I have is, when we add this section to the waiver, when it's actually typed up and filed as part of the decision, that will be added in as another paragraph? Okay, that's what I assumed, but I hate to assume things, that's not true. I'm also wondering, under conditions, because we do state, and it's also been one of the things that has been brought up, under the findings in the first paragraph, the last sentence says, "The approval of this plan does not authorize the applicant to interfere with the rights of others to use the land as shown on the plan." I'm wondering if something similar to that should be put under conditions, because there is a driveway, and we were concerned about whether the construction could interfere with the use of the driveway. And we have put forth a statement that the construction of the road will not interfere with the use of the messenger driveway.
Should we put a condition in?
I'm
that-
just wondering-
That they have to maintain access, even though it's understood, but let's put it right in writing
I'm
that they
just
have to
wondering if we
maintain
should.
access of some kind during the construction. They pave the street one piece at a time, one half of the other. They close Main Street on Saturday,
Yeah.
fix it, it gets done.
What
What do you
and I'm
think?
kind of
Give us some
asking
guidance here,
Brian
Ryan.
for guidance
We have an
on that.
expensive consultant here with us tonight. We can ask him questions.
I think you required that as a condition of your approval on the subdivision on Timber and Cartway. There was an issue with one of the neighbors who lived further down the road,
Yes.
and you could put a condition in there similar to that, that, you know, citing the finding of paragraph 1, you might just want to have condition 5 that states, you know, to the extent that the board is empowered to do so, you know, there shall be no interference with the rights of others to pass or repass over any private way.
Does that work for you, Patricia?
Absolutely.
I don't know
We
whether
said
that's
it
from the
before. I
board.
thought, yeah, we did say it. We did say we're going to do that, so I think it's important to do something we said.
So what did I say?
To the extent the board is empowered to do so.
Right, because remember, you're not determining anybody's rights.
Right.
You either can or can't. So you don't want to have some sort of broad statement that, you know, you command that you shall of access open between the hours of 5 and 6. You're not authorizing anyone to interfere with the use of any private ways as depicted on the plan. Okay?
So is that a motion to amend, Pat?
Yeah,
Okay.
so moved.
I'll second.
But Brian has to recreate the sentence he just put together. But the important part is to the extent the board is empowered to do so.
Yeah.
That there will not be any interference with,
With the rights of others to use any private ways as depicted on the plan.
okay? So we have to take a vote on
Yeah,
that
we got a motion and a second. All in favor on the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay. Well, I think you all hit all the points. That's what it's supposed to work, yep.
I have one other quick. Is there any sense of where the construction vehicles will be parked during construction?
From my experience, they park any way they can.
Well, that's what's of concern to me, because it's 14 feet, and because of the access where you come into the property to begin with, and that sharp turn, it doesn't seem to me that there's, unless they park on the lot itself, as long as it doesn't
They have 4 acres, they
interfere
have
with
to do
the,
that too.
as long as it doesn't interfere with anybody else.
That's a concern, I don't know what we can do about it. I can tell you it doesn't do any good. Contractors show up at 7 in the morning, 6:30, and park anywhere they can. And you gotta go after them.
And the board doesn't have any rule or regulation.
Yeah, we don't have, yeah, that's
speaks to that
common
issue.
courtesy
Correct.
is expected. So, well, we have a motion and a second, and we've added a condition. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? All set? Next.
Thank you very much. Could I say one thing?
No. You had your chance at the beginning.
I just wanted to basically compliment Brian Curry because he's been I think you know, ideal in towns all over the place, and it's been a pleasure working with Brian Curry. I would describe him as a public servant, and the town will miss him. So anyways, I just wanted to thank Brian.
Here, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, cousin.
You gotta go buy him a drink now.
Okay, now we're going to go on committee reports. We'll try to go right in order, the way they're listed here. And I think, Pat, why don't you start off with the local planning committee?
The local planning committee has not met since, before Christmas at some point in time. And at that point, we had our last meeting with Ray Jack. And I believe you all know, we started with the elements that the DPW was involved in because they were by far the preponderance of involvement, except for the planning board probably, on the various elements. We already voted the changes to the transportation element. That was really almost all the DPW. Some others that we picked up with him, the historical, they had, I believe, one thing in there that they were involved in, and that we have to meet with the Historical Commission on that. The one that really received the most attention with some amendments and corrections was the, oh my gosh, I just blocked.
It's okay.
The
It's
committee,
okay.
Resiliency, Coastal Resiliency Committee. So there are a number of changes in that as well, and I will get that to you, but I don't want to get it to you prematurely, because the one thing that came out of that, there was an article in the Enterprise, is that we were recommending a coastal resiliency coordinator. This came from the meeting that the selectmen had with a lot of different boards and committees, and it was really obvious that there was not a lot of communication, not by design, but by lack of time, between the various boards and committees. And Ray picked right up on that. It's been a concern of his for a long time, that when we're dealing with coastal resiliency and the potential problems on this, we should have somebody in place who you could say is an ombudsman to all the committees and boards that are involved with anything to do with coastal resiliency, so that everybody knows what the other is doing. Nobody takes anybody by surprise. This is critical. It's being recognized as critical worldwide with what is going on with climate change. So that is a recommendation that Ray made that we thought, now I'm going to put these changes together and I will forward them to Charlie McCaffrey and to Jen so that their committee and board respectively will have a chance to look at that and weigh in and see if they have other changes to be made too. But until those recommendations are made, I hesitate to bring it to our board to weigh in on. And I don't know whether you agree with that or not, but this seemed to be the consensus with Paul and Bob and me. And I believe we brought that up with Ray too. He thought that would be a good idea to send it out to these other boards. What we will be dealing with is what we want to take up next. And perhaps we ought to be looking at what the planning board should be doing and whether we've done it, haven't done it, whether we want other things. Our principal area is land use. And I think probably we should tackle that first because it has to do with so many other things that we're dealing with the reset plan, with housing. So I think maybe we ought to look at land use and bring that up to our own board and get comment on that as an element that we look at first as a planning board, just like we had the review with Ray. So that's my report. Anybody want to add to that?
Well, Charlotte actually wanted to talk to me earlier about things in comparison of the local comprehensive plan with the town's strategic plan that the selectmen do.
Okay.
And her comments to me were, has anyone watching our plan and going through and seeing, are these things done? And my answer was, yes, that's what we do. Pat,
Right.
that you come to, yes, if you come to the local comprehensive plan, you will see that 2 or 3 years ago, we had Ray Jack come in and we went through all the different things and then we bring him back to review the plan and look at that element. So that is how it works, that we actually sit, once a year, go through it again and add things and take them off. And so it's a process that happens on Wednesdays, and then the ideas are brought here as action items, and this board does it, not the little group. The little group just brings them forward. So I suggested she should show up at one of the meetings just to see how it works. So do you have anything you want to add, Charlotte?
My concern had come from talking with members of the Board of Selectmen, not really feeling that, one, their strategic plan is not well known, even though they put a lot of effort into it, and they wish that it were better known, and that matching that up to the sense of this board, that a lot of effort has gone into the local comprehensive plan, the town master plan, and yet not a lot of people, even some of the members of the Board of Selectmen, are not that well aware of it, and that one of the functions, the Board of Selectmen was hoping that the quarterly meetings served, the joint meetings, would be exactly that kind of familiarization, that it's an educational thing, not only for the people who are attending the meeting, but for the people who might be watching the meeting, and an opportunity for both our board and the Board of Selectmen to make these things better known. It's an educational opportunity, and for all of us to see how they correspond to one another. Are they, do they coordinate? Are they in concert, or are they in conflict? It would be good to know the answer to that. And actually, when you go and look, because they're easy to find on the website, they're very nicely coordinated. So it would be better that we all know about it than not. And it could be, as a newcomer, I have so much ignorance I ascribe it to others, but there was a sense that maybe, no, they're not as well known as they should be. The other exercise is to look at the requirements for our own plan, the local comprehensive plan, and what the state requires us to have. Turns out most towns in the Cape do not call it a master plan. They do call it a local comprehensive plan, perfectly allowable, and we're meeting all those requirements. There's no doubt about it. And it's good for that to be right out there, too, in case there were any question about that. So
So I received a call from Sue Moran, and I've volunteered to work with Charlotte in putting the two plans side by side on a PowerPoint presentation and show it at the joint meeting
For discussion.
for discussion.
That's excellent.
That was something that they were bringing forward, and I said, Charlotte has the energy and I know how to do it, so we're going to get together on Saturday and try to put a side-by-side comparison. We'll see how it goes.
Well, it brings up exactly what I spoke about with coastal resiliency,
Right.
the necessity for the boards to know what each other, or the
But-
committees.
Just the fact that we put it up on the screen, they read it, and there'll be an opportunity to comment on it right there. We'll do what you want. We'll have a discussion as they come up at that meeting.
Excellent.
So I mean, it was their gig, they called the meeting, but I guess they've asked us to take more of a role in it. And actually, it should be pretty good, because for us, we can make sure everything we want's in the agenda. So that's always a good thing.
Totally.
When's that meeting again?
It's in 2 weeks.
27th, I think.
27th,
Is this one of those Saturday morning?
right, horribly
It's a
early.
Saturday morning,
Yeah, not this Saturday. It's
yeah.
Monday.
The
Yes,
following Saturday, yeah.
8:30.
very bad.
Jeez.
Well-
27.
Okay, Community Preservation Committee. Who does that?
I do. So we took applications this fall, and we conducted some interviews, and for a recommendation for town meeting in April. We've had the Upper Childs River and Farley Bog Restoration Project, Gov Fuller Field Rehabilitation, Highfield Hall, Historic Resources Inventory Phase 2, First Church Restoration in Woods Hole, Preservation of Knobska Light Keeper's House, and Homeowner Preservation Project. And two of the larger requests were for the Gov Fuller Rehabilitation, which includes some bleacher work, handicap accessibility to the seating, and then the second largest, the other large one is the Knobska Light Keeper's House. So we're going to be doing some final voting on that and get it ready for our April town meeting.
Okay. Coastal Resiliency and Coastal Pond Management Committees. Is that you, Paul?
Well, the first half
It
is,
is?
I don't know about the Coastal Pond Management Committee, but Coastal Resiliency Committee is meeting every 2 weeks. I think I reported last time that there was a county program. County has a large grant to do a lot of coastal work, and they had a major conference on December 5th and 6th, which quite a few people from Falmouth attended, and had some very good presentations. And one of the things that one of the presenters was a fellow from New Jersey, talked about New Jersey future. And he came out just 2 weeks ago with a very comprehensive document, and I'll circulate the executive summary. I'll give you a copy if you want. But it's a very comprehensive report on what they did following Hurricane Sandy in New Jersey, and I think it's relevant to what we're trying to do here. Cape Cod Committee has also set up a Resilient Cape Cod group, and they divide the Cape into 4 areas: the Buzzards Bay, Nantucket Sound, Outer Cape, and Boston Bay there. And having a series of meetings on each of the 4 groups. And there's 3 meetings, and the first ones were late to mid-December. And the next round begins tomorrow and Thursday for the 2 that we're interested in, so I'll be attending those meetings. The committee has also took proposals from about 9 consultants and about 5 public agencies on a workshop that's needed to continue the next step in the process. And a recommendation was made, a contract is being finalized, and plans are to have a workshop on pretty soon. Have a workshop inviting all the participants to a meeting on the Saturday, because it has to be an 8-hour meeting, so it'll be sometime in early March. And they'll facilitate this thing, and the selected firm is Woods Hole Group with Stantec, and they've done this before, so they're going to have a series of meetings and set this up, and they're very precise agenda required by the state. So that'll be coming up fairly soon. And the committee also wrote a letter to the Board of Selectmen recommending the next phase, the vulnerability study, be executed as soon as possible. I don't know the status of that. So it's been pretty active, and the intent would be to try to get the results of this workshop and make a presentation to the April town meeting on what's been going on. Because it is an action committee, so we're supposed to be doing something causing action.
Could I ask a question about coastal resiliency and the committee?
Yes.
The Davis Strait Plan shows major changes being made in land use that would be all tied into coastal resiliency, renewing the areas that had been swampland that's now been filled in and paved over. Do you foresee at some point, or does the Coastal Resiliency Committee at some point review that plan and let us know how the two sets of plans intersect?
We have not had a discussion on that, but it's a good point. You know, we haven't discussed that. We're basically taking all the information, listening to interviews from people from Ray Jack to Woods Hole, Oceanographic Institution, and some others, so we're not quite there yet.
But you foresee a time when you will be?
Yeah, I think so.
Does coastal pond management, we don't have anyone following them, that's on the list here, but there's a group that does that, but we're not involved, are we? None of us follow that.
I think that committee is,
What? Is that you?
It's been disbanded since George passed away,
Ah.
the chairman. Not disbanded, but just
Not happening.
active.
Okay, well, that'll come up at a later date. Leave it on the list for the next time. EDIC, well, we have been very active. We had a meeting this morning. Probably the biggest change is we reorganized. Mike Glasso, after 7 years as chairman, has stepped down, staying with the board. And Chris Land, general counsel from, is it the MBL? One of the places in Woods Hole, I forget which one it is, but he's agreed to be the chairman. Woods Hole Oceanographic, yep. And looking forward to having a really strong and active group. The two things that we talked about, or that we need to talk about this board, is really the two biggest projects were finished. The station project, it's good to look at. We don't have the money working well yet, but that's where the effort's going to be. You look at me strange. They had planned to put a cafe in the building, and the idea was the cafe was going to pay us all this money. And I kept advising them, no one's going to pay you money to sell coffee at a bus station. And we never were able to get anybody to do it. So our business plan, they were going to pay half the income was coming from the cafe. And I never agreed to it. It was just the other groups. But sure enough, we can't find anyone that's interested in a cafe, and we're making, but the way I negotiated the lease with Peter Pan is, they pay all their operating costs. So we don't charge them rent, because the operating costs that they pay are so high, it's more than the market rent. They're paying about $30 a square foot in costs for a bus station. Now, that's as high as any retail space on Main Street. It's a big number, and they got a burr in their saddle, but they made the payment. So that's really, we have, the EDIC has to come up with some other plans. And the other thing was, and I probably should report it, this group, because you're going to hear it from us, in the plan we did, and actually I was the one who put the budget together for the state, we told them that the only way we could survive and run this thing and for the next 99 years and take care of it is if we started charging for parking. We had a parking revenue in there of $6,000 a year, and no, there's been some resistance to parking, but we are working on a plan. We have hired Holmes and McGrath. They've done a study. We know where our land is. We know that Many of our butters are parking many cars very frequently on our property. And we see that as a revenue source for the EDIC to take care of that building. So that's where, and we're addressing that with the state. We're asking them for permission to go forward and start charging for parking, both in the lot itself and maybe expanding into the 2 acres of land that we have. But that's just in the planning stage. I'll advise you as we move along, but that's discussed quite a bit at our meetings. And then the expansion of the solar project. We have asked Citizens Energy to apply for Phase 2. And Phase 2 will be great for solar energy and saving some, finding carbon-based energy. However, it's not going to pay us any money this time. The state has totally taken away all the, what they call SRECs, or solar energy recoverable energy credits. The state used to give you money if you generated power. Now they don't. No, they don't give you anything. There's no SRECs at all. There are some benefits. There is a capital gains issue. The developer can avoid that. But basically, it doesn't really. The only income going to be will be for the rental of the land, and it's 12. It basically comes down to $12,000 a megawatt a year. That's the general market rate for solar fields. I did a study of the whole Cape. I looked at it, and we based ours on that. And so basically, that's all we're going to get. So the town will get another $24,000 out of the solar project. The first phase, we're getting $700,000 out of it, and then Phase 2 is going to be very little. It's disappointing, but it's still $24,000, and it's for 25 years. So it's, that's all we can get right now. That the state funding it doesn't exist. But those projects we'll be reporting back on that. It'll be a while before it's ready. We're having a little difficulty. We found out that we're second on the list. An applicant has got in front of us for tying into the network. When you build a solar field, the energy, Eversource, has to engineer their system so it's all set for you to plug in your megawatts and it doesn't blow up the system. So they have to redesign it, and so they have to study it to make sure they have the capacity to that. And there's only so much capacity they can give, and there's a waiting list, and we're second on the list. One of the applicants in town that applied for the zoning change actually got on the list ahead of us. I tried hard as hell to prevent that from happening, but it didn't. But they didn't get their zoning, so we'll see what happens.
Going back to coal anyway.
So that's the EDIC report. Affordable Housing Committee?
So
Yeah.
we've been, the committee's been quite energized, especially since our Housing Institute that we attended. And we've been looking at other communities to see what they're doing for affordable housing. And I got a copy of, actually, Oak Bluffs to allow mixed-use development in the B1 zoning district while maintaining the unique character of Oak Bluffs by encouraging the preservation of existing buildings within the historic context and setting in which they were established. It goes on to talk about meeting a variety of housing needs, and one of their big pushes is to put housing above existing single-story buildings. So as Charlotte pointed out, right down the street from us is a strip mall where there's a little Talk of the Town restaurant in North Falmouth. There's a bank and a liquor store. That's like the perfect place to go up a level and to put housing units. So I forwarded it to a couple of you. I'll forward it to the rest of you.
Actually, anything like that probably should be sent to Brian and to the office, and they send it out. We don't communicate between ourselves. Open meeting law requirement.
No, I can send it, you can't respond to me.
Well, I would suggest everything go to Brian. if you
I'm
could do
happy
that.
to do that. I'm
That's
just saying
that's
that
the way I want
there's
to do it.
no, as long as no one
But they could.
comments back.
They could. As soon as they do, we break the law.
Well, shame on you. Anyway, it's got mixed use, special permit, waivers, existing, conversion of existing 3-story buildings to apartment units. So the bottom line to me, as I read through this bylaw and some other towns who are looking at doing the very same thing, is instead of us looking at the little streets in and around Davis Straits to see what we could put in where, sort of hit or miss, sort of, I shouldn't say hit or miss, that's not what I mean, because we would never do anything hit or miss. But if we have existing buildings now that are single story, or either 1.5 stories, and it may mean a change in the bylaw to increase it to 3 stories. But it's a wonderful way, when you already have a structure, to add to our affordable.
We actually are doing this. We created the Business Redevelopment District, and we put the housing component in there, and a developer has just got approved on 661 Main Street, a 1-story, 9,000 square foot building that he's gonna put a total second floor on and 7 apartments right here on Main Street.
Right,
It's a
that's-
zoning law we changed 10 years ago, Pat, it was before my time. But it's
Right.
actually happening now.
Yeah.
So we do have that exact bylaw in place in business redevelopment. And we give a waiver to up to 50% of the parking requirements if the housing is compatible. So we've incentivized the development so that the guy comes, because normally he would have to have parking for all his first floor tenants, and the place is all built and they don't have any more, but they were allowed a waiver for the 7 apartment units, and they're going in downtown. And
Right.
that's, our business redevelopment has been doing that for 10 years.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, you say Oak Bluffs has this new plan. We've been doing it for a long time. Maybe they copied us.
Well,
I'm kidding, sorry.
they didn't, but I mean, all I'm saying is, this is, the way the bylaw is written is very geared toward affordable housing, mixed use. And the Affordable Housing Committee thinks this is a wonderful way for us to build more affordable housing, because there's existing structure underneath. And if we could build up, if the structure can deal with another level.
Is there incentives for making it affordable versus
I'm gonna
market rate?
I sent you the bylaw.
Okay.
I forwarded it to you.
Yeah.
I'll send it to everybody, because it's more than just this one component. I mean, I think when there are good ideas that come from anyone, us included, I like to share whatever we have, but I also like to bring in, ideas. And the Affordable Housing Committee is just, we so desperately know what the need is here. And part of it is geared toward summer help that come and have no place to be. And anyway, I'll send it to you, and you'll look at it and see, it's different,
Okay.
a little different.
One thing I heard that we could consider a change is, I don't really want to go higher than, someday we might decide to build higher than 35 feet, but right now we're listed at 2.5 story. What that means is the 3rd story can only be half the square footage of the 2nd story. Okay, that's the way when you go and apply for a building permit and you want to, trying to make a 3rd floor, they won't let it be any bigger than 50% of the 2nd floor. That may be something we want to change in your situation. And
Well,
and it would be a modest change, because we wouldn't be making the buildings higher, we would just make the roofs flat.
Right, we talked about that.
That'd be a way to do it.
Flat roofs?
How do you get 3 stories? 3 full stories, how do you do it?
Excuse me, I wasn't being serious. I wonder if I could add to Pam's report on affordable housing. After the conversation that we had here as a board, all supporting finding ways to make the zoning changes necessary to make the Davis Strait plan go forward. You remember that? It's back before the holidays, but we did actually have that conversation. And Brian, acting on that, said he would help us push that forward. Pat and I met with Brian and with two people who came from the Cape Cod Commission at Brian's invitation so that we could move this process along so that they could help us with what zoning changes would be necessary, what would be our next steps, so that we could kick that along more. And I think, Brian, before we all sat down, you were saying that's what has happened next.
We'll be meeting with commission staff. I think we're trying to get them in here soon and put together a presentation for the board with regards to certain implementation steps and to discuss with the board sort of the next steps for reset we had discussed. And we're hoping that happens here in the next 2 weeks.
Wonderful, because in that area, there will be a lot of multifamily housing that will be there, perhaps as a matter of right, perhaps as a matter of special permit. They'll advise us on all the technical things, but those are the areas that have the access to schooling, to the sewers, to water, to everything that makes it work. So it's our natural area to look right now. So that's just to let you know that, thanks to Brian, this is moving ahead.
So that'll be a planning board presentation. They'll present to us here.
Yes. We're hoping, given some time constraints, for the 23rd.
For when?
The 23rd.
The 23rd. Well, that would be timely, because
Yeah.
then we could report on it
Right.
for our joint meeting on the 27th.
Right.
That's hopeful.
I said it would be timely, I didn't say it would.
I'd like to extend that invitation to come to our meeting. I mean, I know it's an open public meeting, to the Affordable Housing Committee, just so they feel incorporated into I mean, we should be working very closely together, so I would like to have that invitation go out to the Affordable Housing Committee.
You can invite them, you're on the committee.
I'm going to. 23rd.
John, I saw you twitch there.
Yeah, just a question. The other towns that you've been researching, do you know if they're encouraging their affordable housing in areas that have sewer, or it's just in parts of their town overall?
I think it's, I mean, like Dennis, for example, you sent me that information from Dennis, where they don't have a lot of sewer, and a lot of the mid and outer Cape don't have a lot of, if any, sewer. So if they have it, I mean, that's clearly where they're looking to expand, but if they don't, they're looking at all
Okay.
sorts of systems, I think.
In the Vineyard, I don't think they have sewering on the Vineyard, but maybe they do.
I don't know.
I think they do in Oak Bluffs.
Do they?
Oak Bluffs and
Okay.
maybe,
Yeah, they can't have houses that close together.
Oak Bluffs and, what's the other big town?
They would have been floating away a few
Haven.
years ago. Yeah. I'm pretty sure there was one in the back there.
If I remember correctly what I read about the Dennis proposal that they're using, they're allowing affordable housing above their stores on Main Street by right, if 50% of the increased units are affordable.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, incentives.
That, there's a building, I know on Main Street, I won't get specific on it, but it's 7,000 square feet, 4,000 square feet on the ground floor, 4,000 square feet on the second floor, and 4,000 square feet on the third floor. It was built before the height restrictions were required, but because it's retail on the ground floor, and they have 8,000 square feet, but they're only allowed 6 units per acre, and it's a half acre, so they can only put 2, to meet the zoning, they could only put 2 units in 8,000 square feet, and no one's gonna build a 4,000 square foot apartment on Main Street. It's right here, it's up and down our street, so we could change our bylaw with something along that lines that would take some of these buildings are on the sewer, they got public transportation. I can tell you the apartments that I do downtown, people love to live on our Main Street. It's considered a really great spot to live. So maybe we could think about addressing that It's almost exactly what you're talking about. That would be a B1 zone, where we would then, well, I'll let the lawyers and everything craft it. We'll make our new planner work on that.
Good luck on that.
But there's a perfect example of what you're talking about.
Right, and that's exactly
Right
part of what is
over there.
is in the Oak Bluffs plan.
So you know, that 8,000 square feet has been vacant for a long, the owner of the building actually uses the second floor as his giant office. He sits up there by himself, and he has this giant room, because he can't do anything with it. He's got an 4,000 square foot office with one desk, and the third floor is just totally empty.
That's a shame.
It is, and it's all because of our zoning law.
So those are the kinds of zoning laws I'd like to see tweaked to
Well, that's gotta be more
accommodate
than
the
a tweak,
affordable housing.
but yeah. Well, we'll have to start working on that. And that'll be a good thing.
So one of the reasons I bring up the dentist is we have other village centers in Falmouth, not just Main Street.
Yeah.
And so we have retail and we have business and other parts of our community that we might be able to add affordable housing or housing in general, not just in the center of town. So just bringing it up.
I think Davisville is a very ripe area for that.
Yeah.
What is?
Davisville. Well, you know, I committed in the past, and I'm involved in Davis Straits right now, but that'd be the next thing if we could go to the Cape Cod Commission, take their planning staff and ask them for a reset for that one as well. Because we had talked about that off and on for years. We haven't done anything on it yet.
Yeah.
But it's kind of fallen behind, as it always does, another part of town.
Yeah.
So we got to probably kick that one a little harder.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be true that if it were written so that it affected a B1 or whatever, there's one in each one of the villages, as I understand it, isn't there? So,
There's B2 in all the villages, not B1.
Not
B1
B1?
really only exists in Woods Hole and downtown, I think.
Ah.
I'm not aware of it anyplace else.
oh, okay, I thought there,
B1 is no setbacks, the buildings are right up against the street, the parking, you don't have to provide parking, you use municipal parking lots, and, you know, it's a different, it's town, it's a
Yeah.
village. But that's what we like. I mean, I think Falmouth's most successful planning venture we've done is our Main Street. And we, you know, 10 or 15 years ago, came together with a plan, moved the lighting, changed the sidewalks. Our Main Street is really great. People love it. They come, you know, they really love our Main Street, and we have and it'd be great if we could work that. And our local comprehensive plan already addresses the issue, is that's where the growth should be in these little village centers.
what I hear most is that we should manage to do for the rest of Main Street what's been done for the stretch so far,
Yeah.
particularly getting rid of the telephone poles and all the extra signage. So, what, they were moved behind?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
whatever, the eyesores have been moved out of the way, and it made all the difference in the world. If there was some way to find the funding to extend that all the way up to Stop and Shop Corner and maybe beyond, it would make a world of difference.
That was state funding that worked on Main Street here.
Public Works Economic Development back in the day, it was 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, my God, I remember that. I remember meeting about it. That's 25 years ago?
For moving the telephone poles 25 years
The
ago?
P-WAD grant was written in 1992. I think we finally got it going 93 and 4. And then we ran into some groundwater issues.
Yeah.
And then also things happened after that. But it's been a long time.
Jim, can I ask you a question? With,
It's now
hy-
no
hy-
longer P-WAD, it's something else. I'm sorry.
hypothetically, an 8,000 square foot building with those 2 extra floors, if you could put even 8 units, where do you park?
Anywhere you can.
That's the problem.
But that's what parking on Main Street, the idea in doing this is we're not going to be able to pave our way out of the problems. We need to build where they use public transportation, where maybe they walk to work, where maybe they don't have a car, and they can still live. We've got to get away from the automotive design, because that's sprawl. If in fact you use that argument, the only place you can do it is further out, and you go further out and further out, and it's urban
You
sprawl.
just have a shuttle.
Transportation issues, right. There-
Set up a shuttle service
Right,
that
those
could
are all
take
things,
people to where they work.
right. We have to do that. But to answer your question is you don't give them parking.
So hypothetically, if there's no parking, or you can't construct parking underneath the building or anything, then, all the more reason, and we talked about that on the LCP, was a shuttle service that takes people off of Main Street, even during the summers, gets the parking lots at beaches down to a
Yes.
usable.
I think that there's two things. First of all, I live on Main Street. It's basically Locust Street, Woods Hole Road. But I am very familiar with the B-bus going by every 20 minutes. That's all year long. I ride the Whoosh in the summer. I become very familiar with the timing on that. And there's been talk on the transportation level of trying to knuckle under the Steamship Authority and open up
Pick people up, right.
their buses for pickup. But a shuttle, and I think we definitely need to have a summertime shuttle to put the parking in some of the schools and bring people to the
Exactly.
town, to the beach.
Exactly.
I think it's more of a summertime thing.
Yeah.
And it's mostly for non-residents. I polled the group I have breakfast with every Friday morning, and they live in North Falmouth and all around, and they said, if I'm gonna go to Eastman's, I'm not gonna jump on a shuttle and go to downtown to Eastman's. I'm gonna hop in my car and drive down.
And hope to find a parking place.
Yeah, but, they're not, I don't think you're gonna find too many residents that would opt out of using their vehicle unless they are gonna go to the beach, or it's the summertime and something like
But
that.
if you're living above a commercial building,
Yeah, if you're
and there
here,
is really no parking,
yeah,
then you take a shuttle to where you want to go.
yeah, and
Yeah, I
you're
mean,
you're talking
it's
about
like-
from here, though. You're not talking
From
about
Main
being.
Street, no.
Yeah, you're not talking about from the hinterlands.
No,
coming
no, no,
in.
no,
Yeah.
no. I mean, I think they're,
Yeah, there's a pretty big transportation component that needs to
Yeah.
work on that as well.
But
Okay.
I lived in Kenmore Square, and try to find a parking place there on a daily basis.
we lived in Brighton and Austin, and
Oh, yeah.
we couldn't,
yeah. North Cambridge, I lived, Alston,
yeah.
yeah.
Tough finding parking.
So we've touched on the Davis Straits Working Group already. It sounds like we're going to hopefully in a couple of weeks have a report or a meeting with Cape Cod Commission. Maybe.
Hopefully things come together.
Yeah.
Things are in flux at the moment.
Okay.
Uh,
But either way,
both
it'll
down
happen in
there
the
and
next
here.
few months.
You will have something hopefully soon, because we did meet with Sharon Rooney, the chief planner, and Jessica Douglas, the in-house counsel. We discussed, the research study. We discussed how they would become essentially your staff. They would come to your meetings. They would sort of lead the show. We talked about implementation measures. Hopefully we can then have them come to describe exactly what it is they can do and what it is that you want them to do. At one of your upcoming meetings here soon, hopefully 23rd. That's my goal. As your
Pretty
high-paid
pretty
consultant.
timely if that can happen. It'll make our PowerPoint presentation have a little meat in it when we go to all those other committees, because we'll have something that's just happened to tell them about. So it'll be pretty good.
Update that committee at that time as to where you are and where you're heading. At this point, nothing is definitive.
But Pam, I think that the parking discussion is something we have to have. I know when we talk about Davis Straits, and I listen to some of our selectmen and other people, they say, well, where's the parking gonna go? I mean, they don't want to grow anywhere because there's no place for them to park. Well, one of the arguments is if you build the housing 5 miles out, they're going to get in their car and they're going to drive to downtown to go to the store. If we build them housing here, they may just walk out the door. And that's kind of, if in this long-range smart growth idea, you got to start someplace, but the idea is not to apply parking for everybody,
Oh,
for
right.
every car.
Well,
Because that's how we got the mall, and that's how we got the Falmouth Plaza. The biggest piece of pavement in our town. I don't think I've ever seen it
Never,
full.
I haven't.
And yet, it meets our zoning. They got the parking in there, so.
Until the Steamship Authority paved North End.
Correct. You're right, they have made a bigger
Looks like an
one.
airport road.
Yes, but they're a state agency and they do whatever they want. They didn't even submit that plan to us, so we didn't get to see it. That just happened.
You know, when you think about the workforce housing and the need of the restaurants and the stores to have, especially summer, you know, people that come in for the summer to work, they don't need a car. You know, if they're living there and working there,
To give you an example that I've seen, because of what kind of business I do, there's a motel in the Mara Vista that Scout or whoever owns the Seacrest now, I forget who it is, they either bought it or leased it, they put a property manager in there, and they have 60, 70 people, 90 people living there in the summer, all J1 students. The bus comes in the morning, they all get out of their apartments, it whips them over to North Falmouth, and comes back again. It's the strangest thing. You pull into this hotel, and there's nothing but bicycles and no people in the middle of the day. The pool's closed, everything's closed. They're just utilizing the housing for the J1 components. I'm aware of Dunkin' Donuts offering, in other towns, I'm involved in similar things in Buzzards Bay and in Wareham, where they pay, the employer comes in and makes a contract for someone to put them all in these little cottages. For it's the J1, it's a visa they get. That's about as much as I know about it.
they're mostly students.
They're students,
J1
right.
are usually grad students.
Right.
Student visa.
And they're usually, well, you meet them, they're well-educated, they ride bikes like crazy. And that's another thing, too. I remember at one of our meetings,
And end all those.
I recommended, I won't single them out because one of our meetings, I said, why don't we have bike racks for this building? And their applicant and everything, it's Route 28, who rides a bike on Route 28? Well, guess what? They never put the bike racks in, even though we made it a condition, because I'm watching them. And I went to reception there in the middle of summer, and I saw about 20 people going by on a bicycle, the J1 kids. They all have the same simple, it's a simple bike that they get, and they ride them everywhere.
Yeah.
So our future, it is happening with no parking requirements in places to live. It's happening on a seasonal level right now, but your vision is maybe we could do more of that.
I think we could.
And I think we brought up to, at some point, we need to consider mandatory or minimum housing units. So we won't have people building second floors for signs only and not putting apartments in them when they're on our main road.
Absolutely.
So a minimum would be also something we could consider. But I think we talk about it and we think about it, there'll be opportunities. And I believe that this Davis Straits reset is going to be our first chance to implement some of these ideas. So it should be pretty good. And that's what I wanted to bring up at the selectmen's, or not, I call it a joint meeting. I want to make sure everyone knows what we're talking about so they're not surprised about it, you know what I mean? Because to get anything approved by town meeting takes years. And to get the debate early is important.
Well, maybe we need an agenda of the items we're going to bring up at that joint meeting.
That's kind of what, we'll have time to put that, do we meet again? Yes, before the meeting.
23rd?
Yep, so the 23rd, we will develop, that'll be an agenda item for us
Develop an agenda so we...
to bring to that meeting.
I would
Select
bring
them.
that discussion to Mr. Suso and others before the 23rd.
Okay.
I would give them a call.
They have an agenda.
I mean,
But,
I would have, you may want to talk to Sue, chairman and chairman, and let your staff then develop the agenda, but put that out way before the 23rd.
I was already going to do that, I just mentioned it because Pam brought it up, I was already just going to do it on my own, but
You can finalize it
officially it's a good
by
idea.
vote, but
Well, I remember our very first meeting, it was scattershot. I mean, we were talking about a zillion things because of the plan that we were discussing, the Collins plan. But I think we're always better if we have an agenda and we have to stick to a few
I know
things.
she's asked me to put together a PowerPoint presentation on the comparisons of their strategic plan and ours. So that will be, and when we go down our strategic plan, these items will come up and they'll be on the agenda and we can deal with them right then.
Absolutely.
So everything that's on our local comprehensive plan will be on the table at that meeting. So that kind of gives us a plan to march down. All we need to do is reinforce it for a couple areas that make everybody comfortable. I know I'm gonna point out to them that, look at folks, we're gonna be talking about density. We're talking about no more, if we wanna get our housing, 6 units per acre isn't gonna do it. And I can give them a classic example of what we got right on our main street. And it's not right. If we want housing, it's gotta be on the sewer. There's no way can we be building more and more subdivisions out in Hatchville. It just, the smart growth is where your main roads already are. You know, the exercises that we did on the local comprehensive plan, where where are you gonna put your roads, where are they gonna go, transportation.
Schools,
and
library, all the things that
people
people
don't
want.
want to do it, but if you can't create housing without having a plan to deal with the septic issue. They just can't say build more housing, you gotta do both. So people will agree with the housing, but they go, oh, no sewers. Well, we gotta find a way to balance it.
Can I ask a question, because I don't know the answer, or I would have asked? Do you have developments or complexes that have sewage treatment plants? That-
Package plan.
Package
Package
plants.
plants.
Yes, we do. Many of our, well, some of them, Sunrise Estates has one.
Seacrest has an RBC unit, so.
So, yes, we do.
What does Atria do?
What?
Atria, that's a huge complex there, and they're right on a pond. What's Atria's sewage situation?
They have a rotating biological contact. They've got a little predator, PS. Yeah.
So there's a way to take care of, what is that, 250 units there? That's a lot of units
You have to have a
there.
lot of
Yeah.
flow, a lot of money. Right? They're not cheap.
Well, yeah, but neither are the units. Yeah.
I mean, that's the other, possibility to a large development, apartment development, is to have its own sewage
Yeah,
treatment.
that's always, they're pretty expensive, and there's a state law that really kicks in. It's tough. I think it's 10,000 gallons a day flow level
For groundwater discharge.
for ground, and when you exceed that, they require you to have a licensed plant operator on the site all the time. So it kicks the development cost way up, because now you have to have $100,000, well, you need more than that, because you have to have days off, and you probably have $250,000 in salaries.
It's probably very different on the Cape, too, because of the water issue on the Cape.
But innovation's coming all along.
You saw one at the Cape Club with that 28 lot subdivision
Yep.
and all the hotel.
Yeah, we just did one.
You just
Yeah.
did one.
We just did one. Were you with us? The Cape Club, the golf course, Ballymead, they're taking over the driving range and they're putting 30,
Yeah,
so we did that. There was a system on that plan.
so that's just another possibility. You
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
the land for it, but, other towns have done extensive sewage treatment plants because sewering is more expensive until the state decides to say, we'll help you out, which isn't
Okay.
happening right now.
That wraps up our committee reports. Okay? General correspondence? Didn't see any? Haven't had any?
That's it.
Okay. Future agenda items, we've touched on it a little bit. Does anyone want to add anything in the future that we haven't already discussed, or reiterate? You can reiterate if you want to say it again, you can. I'm not
Well, that
being limited.
means Davis Straits is definitely on for we ought to say Davis Straits, just in case everything does come together
For the 23rd.
for the 23rd,
Yeah,
just in
it'll
case.
come together.
Yeah, so
Positive-
Davis Straits.
Positive thing.
Yes, Pat?
I have a question. because we obviously need to have a new planner, what is the status of applications, interviews, and so on at this point? Do you know, Brian?
I can brief you later.
Okay, thank you.
It's not on your agenda.
Yeah.
Oh, I know it's not.
Paul?
Agenda item, we have a meeting on the 23rd, and we have a joint meeting with a bunch of boards on the 26th, so it may be appropriate to talk about the agenda on the meeting on the 23rd.
We said we were going to do that.
We just said, yeah.
Yep, just to reiterate, and I'm wondering if, because when we start going through our local plan, of course, housing will be right up there, right after land use. Should we be coordinating with the new housing coordinator before that, or wait to be surprised when we get there, or how do we fit with that?
Talking about Carla?
I forgot her name, but the new person.
I don't know, I don't know if her head has come up from under the water yet, but she has quite an agenda that the town manager has given her and Peter to follow, you know, to get up to speed with housing. She's not a housing person, but she's
She is now.
smart as a whip.
So, Charlotte, I didn't quite get your point.
Well, as an agenda item, would it be possible to invite her and hear
Oh, got your point.
how we might be
This
working
is on the
together?
future agenda, yes.
This is an agenda item. A possibility would be to have her here and just ask the question, so that we could begin coordinating and hear how that works. I'm sure it affects what we do,
Future agenda item, we'll do it.
yeah.
Don't know if it-
She's finding her way.
Yeah,
She's got a tall order.
she should know this, Alicia over here.
Okay, next meeting, 23rd, we're all set with that? We
On the
discussed that?
2018, right?
Yeah, it does say 17. Yeah, good check, Paul, we gotta get the right year.
You guys are good?
All right.
I blew right by it, so I didn't see it. Yes, Paul?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Wait just a second. I have a question. Mr. Brown, why are you here?
I'm very interested to hear your committee reports.
Okay, I just thought, I'd just sit in the audience and the only one left.
Just got out of another meeting, so I was in the
Thanks.
neighborhood.
Thank you. We appreciate your attention. Adjourned.
Thank you.
There was no second.
I think I can do that.